Hello, welcome to the Indian Classical Guitar Academy, and today we've got something a bit different. I'm going to tell you my top 10 favourite solos, and all of these guitar players are all steeped in blues. So this is part of my blues collection of videos, a little bit of a detour from Indian Classical, but I'm going to tie it all together in the end. I'm going to do a video talking about the connections. So I've actually got 10 solos here, but I've got 3 artists that have 2 solos each because they're, my biggest influences. So, I'm always the kind of person that I tend to kind of zero in on particular artists rather than listen to a big variation. If I get into one style, like blues or fusion or whatever it is, I tend to really focus on just a few players. That's how my attention seems to be orientated. So here we go. First one is Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is just without a doubt my favourite musician of all time and continues to be my biggest influence. So the solos that I'm putting up here are Driving South and Machine Gun. So Driving South, I love the version from the BBC Sessions recorded in 1967. So it's that sort of early Jimi Hendrix experience, and they were playing this tune a lot really in the early days. Like one of the first things that they played together, I think, was just an instrumental, quite kind of straightforward, simple kind of jam. But Jimmy's playing on this one is just every nanosecond, every tiny touch on every single note is just blistering. It's just so passionate and so full of fire and charisma. And just his tone, his timing, his phrasing. I mean, Jimmy's always great, but on this take, it was just utterly sublime. It just flows along. It's got such a amazing groove, such an amazing kind of forward energy in the groove, and he's just riding along that, and all of the fast stuff that he's playing just seems to like perpetuate the groove. It's like he's playing fast and he's playing against the beat, but he's always just driving the whole band forward with that. So I love that solo. And then Machine Gun from Fillmore East with the Band of Gypsies, this is the solo that everyone talks about of Jimi Hendrix, and the first note that he launched into, that sustained high note that he's bending and then it goes into feedback. People talk about that as being like the note, the note that Jimmy hit at the beginning of Machine Gun solo. So I mean, that's one of the most important moments of musical history, I feel. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, because that solo represented something so far beyond the music. He was talking about the violation of, just humanity through the act of war, and that's something that is still so relevant today, and so sadly, and he was speaking about that through the guitar solo, and it was incredible that the solo could just be so much about the subject matter of the song in such a profound way. So that's just got to be one of the most powerful musical statements ever, especially on electric guitar. Okay, so the next artist is John McLaughlin. I have 2 solos by him. One of them is Birds of Fire, Mahavishnu Orchestra, and this solo, I mean, it's so interesting because he's playing a minor pentatonic sort of blues scale, but the harmonic and rhythmic context that he's set up with the composition, Birds of Fire, is just truly revolutionary. This is one of the arrangements, the band arrangements, that I feel is one of the few examples that you can say this is a completely original and unique arrangement. And so that's really quite incredible. I think he was just creating a new sort of like cohesive vehicle for a whole band to play together. And then the way that he incorporated like the richness and the depth of the blues in his solo over that was really outstanding. And when I first heard that, I felt like the notes he was hitting hit me so physically. It was like the notes were like even like reaching like inside of my physical being and like gripping me at my core. So that's just incredible. That's really insane that music can do that to us, and it certainly does it for me on Birds of Fire. The second John McLaughlin solo is an acoustic solo. It's Face to Face on the Shakti album Natural Elements. So I think this came out in 75. So this, I think, is probably my favourite solo, just in terms of just the pure, the lines that he's playing. They're such beautiful, idiosyncratic, sort of very long lines that just it's so imaginative. As he's playing, it's like he's really stretching out and exploring like new directions that his phrase can go, and you really feel that aliveness in every moment. Every new note of the solo is like a new twist, a new turn. And the way that he played on that acoustic guitar he had made for Shakti, the way he played on that guitar, I don't think I've ever heard him play quite the same on any other guitar after that. The kind of tenderness and a certain connection he had with that instrument, in my opinion, I hear something incredibly special with that particular instrument that unfortunately got destroyed somehow. He lent the guitar to someone and then it just came back and the guitar was just ruined. Very mysterious. But the way you can really hear like his pick attack, especially on that acoustic guitar, and there's a kind of weight that he manages to put into those pick strokes that's just incredible, that I've never really heard anyone else do. The particular like grip that he has on those notes, and it has a scalloped fretboard, that acoustic guitar, so he was doing the bending technique on that, which was very unusual to hear that kind of string bending technique on the acoustic guitar. So that's really incredible, and it really, for me, sparked my imagination of what you could then do with the guitar in that Indian classical direction. So that is an incredibly important solo for me for my whole career, I would say. So the third artist I'm talking about is Frank Zappa. I got 2 solos by him. So Muffin Man, the live version from the Bongo Fury album with Captain Beefheart on vocals. Yeah, so that's, you have to hear that to believe it, the Muffin Man solo. It's a really long solo just over this repetitive riff. It's got to be one of the best riffs ever. And just his playing is so visceral, it's so raw. But the thing I really got from Zappa in his solos was that he was so firm with the notes. You can hear that like he's not like a kind of fluid, loose kind of like liquid guitar player. He's just so earthy, and so I really got that feeling of like being really firm with the notes. I really got that from hearing those solos. There's a live version on the Baby Snakes album where that's the first time I saw video of him playing, and then you could really sense his physicality with the instrument was very like visceral, very intense. So that's really something special. And he said that his guitar playing one of his guitar players is Guitar Slim, and he said that he's got a similar feel or similar approach, and he described it as like strangle it, mangle it. Strangle it, mangle it, he would say. So it's like you're strangling the note and you're kind of mangling them together, and it's got this like roughness to it, and it's very unpredictable and off the wall at the same time. But it's inherently bluesy. It's deeply bluesy. The second solo by Zappa is Stingfoot. It's at the end of this really funny song called Stingfoot on the Apostrophe album. And this is, I always thought it sounded like an acoustic guitar. It sounds like an acoustic guitar, but being played through a wah pedal. But I found out from a friend that it's actually more likely that he had a piezo pickup underneath the bridge of his electric guitar. So, because he used to mod his guitar. So then he has a piezo pickup which makes it sound a bit like an acoustic, and then that's plugged into a wah pedal. So again, it's got that kind of really visceral, like hard grip on the notes, but it's got this kind of really like liquid sound with the wah pedal, and very kind of acoustic-y sort of sound. So I thought that was really interesting, because you've got this kind of earthy, like spiky kind of the way that the notes kind of really pop with his style of picking. But then you've got this really kind of like juicy liquid kind of tone. So that's really interesting. You need to hear that one. Okay, so next one is Jimmy Page, Dazed and Confused. Now, Jimmy Page is like he keeps you on the edge of his seat when he's playing, but it sounds like he's on the edge of his seat as well, because it's like he's stretching out and playing things that it's almost as if he's never tried that before, or like he's just, he's being imaginative. He's just kind of jumping in it. He's just kind of going for it. Like it really feels like very unrehearsed. It's not kind of. It's almost like he hasn't practiced these things. It's like he's just diving in and just like grabbing whatever ideas he's got, and just and at times that doesn't always work. But when it works, when Jimmy Page hits it and he's at like full pelt, it's just like it's incredible. When he's really going for it, and it's all kind of like the floor's just kind of falling into place just in front of his feet. It's like he's kind of that thing of like falling down the stairs but then landing on your feet. That's kind of what an amazing Jimmy Page solo is like. And you need to hear the live version from Song Remains the Same, Madison Square Garden. You need to hear that live version that's super long. and he just goes all over the place in that solo. It's well, there's many solos because the piece is half an hour long. So that's a huge journey, and I don't think any other guitar player has quite taken us on a journey that's quite that epic in one long piece of music. So that's something you've really got to hear. Okay, next we're talking about Jeff Beck and Brush with the Blues. This is the version I really like, is the one I've seen on later with Jules Holland's performance, and this is just a great example of Jeff Beck with that really lyrical playing, and it's vocal, it's inherently vocal, the way that he's phrasing and speaking through the guitar, and you can really hear, I think this one's done in the 90s, you can really hear that he's just developed over time so many different little inflections and ways to interact with the string. The ways that he uses his thumb or his fingers, or the whammy bar, and everything that he's doing is all about like the sound production. So it feels like, rather than being his phrases being orientated around like finger patterns, or like flowing through box patterns, or thinking about target tones, or thinking about kind of rhythmic ideas like a lot of guitar players would, it's more like he's starting from the other end. He's starting from, right, I'm looking for this kind of like sound design. I'm getting this approach to how I'm hitting the note, and then the phrase is going to be sort of shaped and impacted around the actual the pure sound of the note that he's creating. It's a bit more like Miles Davis, actually. The way Miles Davis, it was like sound first, and then the phrases were like a logical extension of what that expression of sound needed. So that's something really special to me. Next one is Gary Moore, Still Got the Blues. So Gary Moore, I mean, he was a very powerful guitar player. There was a real, you know, a kind of viciousness to the way that he would play, and I used to find particularly that when I was listening to solos, when I was playing at a young age, whenever I put him on, I just felt incredibly inspired. Like a lot of energy would come through his playing, and he'd be really soaring through the notes. The notes carried so much gravity. So that was something that it always really like put me right into that flow of like really drawing deep on, you know, on your energy, on your passion, and really driving that through the guitar. So that's something that really inspired me, and I saw him live a few times as well, so that was really inspiring to me. The last one is Steve Vai, For the Love of God. I really like the orchestral version that he did, the live with orchestra. So I'm not really much of a Steve Vai fan. When I first heard Steve Vai, I didn't really like it. I wasn't on that pathway. But I've become a lot more fond of him, particularly over the last few years, listening to interviews, because, you know, there's so much on YouTube these days. You kind of get to know the people, the artists, a bit more. And I really love the way that he talks about music and his creative process, and how he imagines different things that he could do on the guitar, and they kind of start with in his mind. And so I really respect him. I really appreciate his voice and what he's kind of offering to the guitar community. And I mean, with that orchestral version of For the Love of God, I mean, he just plays with such incredible passion on there, and it's just so epic. It's really a huge statement to make with the guitar. So I mean, really hats off. I mean, you've got to give credit where credit's due. That must be the best solo I've heard in that whole style of guitar playing. All the guitar players that you could sort of take of that influence from the kind of 80s onwards. I think that's a really special moment. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you found this interesting, and yeah, I just wanted to share something a little bit different. These are all really inherently blues players, I think. When I go back to my favourite players, my favourite solos, it's all inherently bluesy, and I think that's what connects all of them, and the visceral kind of power that they channel through their instrument. I think that's the thing that always really seems to stay with me. I do love to play more kind of gentle, like, things as well, and actually I'd probably spend more than half my time playing very gentle things, but I think that the really fiery stuff is the stuff that actually really gets into my soul and seems to stay there. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on another video soon.